Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. It might sound a little bit weird to say, but Call of Duty kind of has a commitment problem. And I know you're hearing me say that and you're probably thinking, wait a second, Call of Duty and commitment? This is the franchise that refuses to stop launching yearly games for, 20 years in a row. We've heard time and again, hey, maybe we're gonna do a 2-year lifespan for this game instead, and then it flips back and suddenly a new COD is dropping the next year anyways. But it's not necessarily based around that, and hopefully by the end of the video, if you watch all the way through, you'll see what I mean. But no, Call of Duty doesn't have a problem dropping yearly titles at the expense of maybe some of the quality and polish that each game has. But when it comes to what's within the games themselves, that's where Call of Duty is sort of running into some commitment issues, I would call them, because it kind of just seems like year over year, especially as of late, Call of Duty is seeing some reactions and kind of just giving up, which to me seems surprising given the fact that it's just a way that they're limiting themselves. They're really putting a cap on their ceiling and saying, okay, we're content with not doing great here, which just isn't the mentality that I feel like people should have, or franchises as big as Call of Duty should have, right? And I wanted to dive a little bit more into this. So yes, the yearly releases, they got no problem being consistent on that regardless of the quality of the game. They want to put out a COD every single year, and that's probably never going to change. Even with the Microsoft acquisition, we've already heard, we know we've got COD 2024 dropping this year, Black Ops Gulf 4, but then for 2025, what could have been potentially a gap year where Gulf 4 just lives on, they want to do like a Black Ops 2 sequel, sort of bridge the gap game before 2026. But let's talk content in the recent years, because this is where I think the red flags are kind of showing. Let's date back to MW2. Keep in mind, Modern Warfare 2 was the first 3-year development title since Modern Warfare 2019. And we know MW 2019 blew up initially with multiplayer. That launch was huge in and of itself. And then it really took the next step when Warzone dropped and sort of connected to that. So that game did incredibly well. It broke a ton of records. And then Cold War dropped, and unfortunately, it just had rough circumstances with its launch, given everything going on in the world. A lot of work from home, a lot of first-time stuff being done within the development cycle. The game still was solid, but, it was limited in certain capacities. Vanguard, kind of the same deal there, wasn't really well received. But then we get back to MW2. All right, it's coming off of MW 2019, the direct sequel. Standards are high, expectations are high. There's a lot of hope for this game. The hype was there. Launch happens, game's kind of busted, game's kind of broken. It is what it is, but it still was that full 3-year development title. Everything in the game had time put into it. Now, unfortunately, there was still a lot of bugs and a lot of issues with the game despite that fact, but just statistically speaking, everything about that game had a lot of time and a lot of effort behind it. The campaign, the multiplayer, and DMZ. Never before done in Call of Duty history, an extraction third mode. DMZ was going to be its own huge thing, set to compete with titles like Escape from Tarkov and whatnot. They had a lot of expectations for DMZ going in, and I think for the most part, DMZ did attract a lot of new eyes, and it did satisfy a lot of the community. As a third mode, we didn't get a ton of detailed rundowns from the Call of Duty higher ups saying, hey, it's doing this well as a mode as opposed to some other things, but it seemed like from at least the community standpoint, DMZ did really well, especially at the start when everyone was starting from scratch on the same level. You had a lot to do going through your missions, exploring that, getting Easter eggs done, and discovering the lore of the DMZ universe and whatnot. Had a lot of promise, had a lot of potential. But then the seasonal updates started happening, and DMZ got a couple of updates here and a couple of updates there. But then you saw as the year went on, the support for DMZ really started to, sort of fizzle out. It was still seeing some updates in seasons 3, 4, 5, 6, but they weren't really significant. It was more so of the bare minimum. There were a few gameplay changes here and there, but nothing that crazy. And keep in mind, this was again a mode that was developed for a long time. I think even dating back to MW2's launch, there were reports that DMZ was actually the longest developed mode. It was being worked on during Modern Warfare 2019, which means it was basically a 4-year development mode, and the rest of the game was like that 3 to 4 year area, right? So DMZ should have by far been the longest and most supported mode that we had in the game. But again, over time as the seasons dropped, MP got some attention, although albeit not all that much. Warzone definitely got the most attention because it's obviously the biggest mode, but then DMZ really became sort of the least favorite child, I guess you could say here. Started to lack a lot of attention. And then of course we got word of this year with MW3. And surely, a direct sequel, we're gonna see the extension of DMZ and see more support for this, an update to the map, the missions, the story, everything like that. Oh, no, that's not the case actually whatsoever. 1 year of DMZ, I wouldn't even call it a full year because as we saw, the support for it really fizzled out and they stopped updating it significantly. So not even a full year of DMZ, and they kind of just said, all right, we're done, on to the next. Now you can still go back and play DMZ all you want. It's just gonna be the same exact thing you were playing several seasons ago, right? Because it didn't see those significant updates. So they spent multiple years developing this, making it its own thing, marketing the heck out of it, hyping it up like crazy. And then within a year, it's already gone, kicked to the curb. They don't really care about it anymore. And insert Modern Warfare Zombies. Another third mode, super similar to DMZ in so many ways. Played on the big map. You got your faction or missions there with the axe and whatnot. There's no PvP, but it's still the same sort of like premise and gameplay loop. It's just with zombies now, and there's some lore involved there. And already as we've seen, I mean, we're only coming up on season 3, but it's kind of the same exact thing as DMZ. We saw some updates go live in season 1, nothing too crazy. Season 2 was a zombies themed season, and it barely got any updates, which I still think is ridiculous. Season 3, maybe we get some cool updates, who knows, but going off the trend so far, zombies is not really a priority for them, even though this year they did report that Zombies was the most successful, Modern Warfare Zombies in specific, was the most successful third mode they've had in a long time. So there actually is hype behind it. There's a big community behind it, and they're proud to boast about that. And it still already feels like they've completely abandoned and given up on zombies this year. And it's just going to, again, bridge the gap until next year when we have a Treyarch title with true zombies, round-based zombies, Outbreak, whatever the case is there. And it's been developed for a full 4 years as well. But now we're going on 2 years in a row of essentially the same situation happening. Oh, COD put all the time and effort and hype into this new mode and sort of wanted to separate it from the standard multiplayer, which rarely ever changes significantly, and Warzone, which has sort of been on a descent since Caldera dropped. And, well, we care about it for about a month at launch, and then it dwindles off, and it's not really our focus anymore. So why make a third mode in that case? If you're gonna support it and do all this stuff for pre-launch and hype it up and market it, hey, buy our paid experience to play this, and it's gone within, 2 months max maybe, without any real updates following, at least those that are substantial. Sure, doing a new story mission is fun, the new Dark Ether spots are fun, but it's not crazy game-altering updates that's going to keep Modern Warfare Zombies feeling fresher and fresher and fresher season over season. Now you could argue maybe that's because MW3 wasn't really developed nearly as long as all these other games. It had 16 months of development, as we know, as opposed to the standard 3 years. So hey, maybe it's because Zombies just didn't have that much time in the pot. They couldn't cook it up correctly. But then what happened with DMZ? Because that was basically 3 to 4 years of development and the same thing happened. You may recall even that Warzone back in the day for MW 2019 was only planned to be a third mode. It was going to be just like, Spec Ops or Zombies or DMZ is now. It was supposed to be a third mode. And then they saw Warzone blow up and obviously became its own thing. Going into Cold War, we were going to be going back to Blackout and playing on new maps there. It wasn't going to be Warzone. But then it took off and they said, okay, we have to stick with this. So is it specifically results driven where they only care about the quote unquote third mode? Warzone takes off. They're fully fine with supporting that and extending that to multi-year support. But they said that Zombies this year was one of the best third modes in history. So why did it so quickly seem like all the attention was taken away from it and not really, I would say, pushed elsewhere? Because the MP content's still the same, the Warzone content's still the same. It's just Zombies doesn't get any attention there. What about DMZ? Numbers spoke for themselves. DMZ content did really well across the board. There were a lot of new viewers and a specific audience just for that niche style of content. So I wouldn't say, it's directly results driven. I mean, Warzone took off to a different height than those games, but why did they get abandoned so quickly? Why did they give up so quickly on that? I think it's concerning that, again, so much time and effort was put into each of these modes, especially DMZ, and it was abandoned and given up on. And we already know Gulf War is going to have a lot of time and effort put into it, but what if Zombies doesn't go crazy in that game? Is it just like, oh well, we tried, guys, and then there's no content for the year, even though there's still communities for these? So yeah, I think it is safe to say Call of Duty does have a commitment problem in a specific way. They do love dropping their games year over year. They love making money. They love adding in a gazillion microtransactions for Warzone and for multiplayer and even for Zombies or DMZ. But unless a mode seems to be breaking records across the globe because everyone's stuck inside playing it, they don't seem to care too much about the longevity of any product anymore, which I would say is a red flag. Hopefully, this is a trend that changes going forward and it was just a few awkward years of development. But really only time is going to tell for that. That being said, though, that's going to wrap things up for this one. If you enjoyed the video, do me a favor, drop a like on it. It's always really appreciated. And if you are new to the channel, every single day, this is your place to be to stay up to date with all things going on in COD. So feel free to hit that subscribe button and turn on those post notifications. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you later. Peace out.